everyone. Welcome to the Hunt Club podcast. Today we're joined once again by Owen, a security analyst on the MDR team. Owen, you want to say hello to everyone?
Hey guys, how are things?
Yeah, so if you guys haven't seen the podcast previously with Owen, he talked about how the MDR team uses our AI analysts in their day-to-day. But today we're just going to talk about threat trends and just understanding what you've been seeing in your day-to-day as an MDR analyst in terms of the threat landscape. So first off, just to start off, how long have you been working as a security analyst?
So I've been in the cybersecurity industry for nearly 3 years now, and tech as a whole for almost six. Um, I've worked in a few different roles in tech as a software engineer, as a developer, and then as a security analyst the last 3 years. Then,
Amazing. You liking it so far as a security analyst?
yeah, loving it so far.
Great. I love that. So can you just kind of walk us through the process, kind of like abstractly, how you approach the alerts that you're getting on the platform and from customers?
Yeah, sure thing. So how it works for us is in the Vectra platform, entities, which is just, a user account or a host, are given a scoring, basically like a risk scoring. And once host goes over or accounts over certain threshold of risk score, then they get prioritized to us, and then the MDR team takes a look at it. So how that happens is, multiple detections or maybe specific detection types that are more valuable to speak than others. If it causes a score to go over a certain amount or a certain threshold, then the MDR team get notified and we take a look into things then.
Yeah, yeah. So you're really in the front lines there, seeing like what kind of attacker behaviors, like what kind of attack surfaces they leverage as well. So can you actually talk us through, in your time at Vectra, what are like the most common threat trends you've been seeing so far?
Yeah, sure thing. So I've kind of picked out three recent trends that I've been seeing that have caused probably the most of our true positives that we've investigated. So the first one I've picked, and it's kind of a two-pronged one, but it's kind of one attack, so to speak, is what's called adversary in the middle and business email compromise. So without kind of going too technical, adversary in the middle is when you think of kind of historically phishing attacks, right? Everyone knows kind of what phishing is. It's spoken about for
Yeah.
for years. Adversary in the middle is kind of the latest iteration of how threat actors are using phishing to get into different environments. And basically, the main difference here is hackers have realized that instead of hacking in, finding 0 days, finding vulnerabilities, it's easier if they actually just log in. Um,
Yep.
and how they do that essentially is, you know, like the old phishing techniques. You get an email, it says to be a certain person from a certain company, and basically they're just trying to prompt you to visit a link. On that link, then you'll see that it can be any kind of cloud or any sort of account they want to try to take, but usually it's a Microsoft 365 login page, and it
Mhm.
looks, pixel to pixel the same as the legitimate Microsoft login page. So the user, unknowingly not realizing it's a fake page, they'll enter their details. And what actually happens on the back end here is the threat actors have essentially a proxy system set up that forwards those details to the legitimate Microsoft service. So the user actually does log into Microsoft. However, in
Oh.
the process, what they do there is they capture what's called a session token or authentication token, and the attackers are then use that to log into the account. Um,
Mm.
the big issue we're seeing with these types of attacks is historically what you would tell people to prevent phishing attacks and just for general account security is MFA or 2FA. It can be known by both. When you get a text message to your phone with a code or maybe even an authenticator app, you put in a code. I've seen the middle attacks bypass that entirely
Oh.
because the user has already entered the MFA code, then the authentication session token is made and the attackers are using the token that basically says, hey, I've logged in, I'm already that person. So they don't need to use MFA anymore and they're already logged in.
I
Um,
see.
yeah, so that's kind of one of the main things. And that builds on to then what's called business email compromise. So business email compromise is huge at the moment. Huge. I'd say these type of attacks are probably the, one of the biggest we're seeing at the moment as true positives from what we're investigating. So business email compromise then essentially is when the attackers already got the authentication token and now they've logged into your business account, your business email account. And what they then do then is, depending on the threat actor's motivations, but vast majority of cases for business email compromise, they're financially motivated. So they basically want to make money off doing this.
Yeah.
How they do that then is they're basically exploiting the trust of that account, right? So if you were to
Mhm.
compromise, John, who works in accounting's email account, and it's pretty normal for John to email people because he's an accountant, he works in the accounting department, about
Mhm.
money, about wire transfers, about transferring money to different accounts. So maybe they use that account to send an email to someone at work and say, hey, it's John. Can you guys just wire this money for me, please, to this account? And really it's a tractor all
Mm.
along and it's a tractor's email account. Or maybe that's not their actual target. Their target is another company, and they're going to use the initially compromised company as a third party attack, essentially, where they're then going to email another company a phishing link. But because it's coming from a legitimate partner, they trust it a bit more, and their guard's probably a bit more down than if it came from a random Gmail or Hotmail account or something like that. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's probably number one, the main threat we're kind of seeing at the moment. Um, and I actually have a quick example here just to show you guys kind of what that looks like in actuality. Just to kind of see from start to kind of finish what that would kind of look like more or less.
Yep. Let me transition over. There you go. Perfect.
Like, so I just have a Aniron sandbox opened here, and this is just an example. So what I'll show you here is, so this is probably the initial phishing link, right? So this would be the URL that was contained in the email or wherever else the attacker put it in. And you'll see here, then it asks them that it's a secure document. So the email probably says something like, hey, you've received a document or a PDF or whatever. You need to log in to view it, okay? So you'll see here then it's redirected to what looks like a Microsoft login portal, right? But if you look at the top of your screen here, that's not Microsoft.com. It's not a Microsoft
Mm.
domain, but the portal looks very similar. Another key giveaway usually is you'll see in a lot of these cases is the email is actually usually already filled in here. And it's usually the email of the person that they sent the initial phishing email to kind of make them almost not even have time to put in their email. They're just not even thinking. They don't look at the URL. You just want to
Oh.
put in your password and go. And that's kind of what they're trying to push here. Urgency, time. They're trying to make people slip up and make mistakes that they probably wouldn't usually make. And
Mhm.
anything that makes them kind of not have to think as much, um, that's what they're going to abuse here. So that's kind of what it looks in here. So once the person puts in their details here, clicks next, then essentially their account's been compromised already. That's already been forwarded by their tractor's proxy, and they now have full access to that account. Um, yeah, so that's the first kind of two-pronged kind of main one.
Then going
My
back,
second,
yeah, there you
yeah,
go.
cool. So you're back to you then.
Yeah.
So my second kind of trend we've been seeing here is, and again, this isn't like a new threat, but it's still kind of very prevalent, is
Mhm.
what's called the fake updates. Common example of this is sock Gaulish malware. But essentially, what fake updates is when a user is, browsing the internet, um, they'll accidentally visit a compromised site, right? And there's no kind of way for you to know, if an account is, or sorry, if a website is compromised or not, just through your normal web browsing, right? This could be look like a cafe site in your, it could be, a timetable website, anything. And what happens when you visit this site is then you'll get a pop-up that says, hey, your Chrome browser, your Edge browser, whatever it is out of date, and you need to update it. Um, it'll show you an update button. You click update, it downloads an update file to your computer. The user
Yep.
is then prompted to run that update file. But really, it's actually it's a malware file all along, and it's about kind of tricking the users into downloading this file and running it. Um, Once it's run, then usually what happens here is that file will connect to some sort of command and control server or something like that, download maybe a secondary payload, and from there, the attackers will have access to that host to carry out whatever things they want to carry out. Um,
Mhm.
in terms of malware, this is still probably number one what we're seeing in definitely the MXDR service side of things, connections to sock Ghoulish domains as well as downloads of the sock Ghoulish files themselves. Um, So this is still extremely common, and it's unfortunate because again, it kind of tries to take advantage of people who are trying to do the right thing, right? You're always told
Mhm.
keep everything updated, don't leave things out of date. You get a prompt that your browser's out of date, and people think they're doing the right thing by trying to update their browser, right? So it's kind of trying to take prey on that essentially.
Mhm.
So similar to the last one, I have an example here what that looks like if I can
Okay.
just take control again.
Yep. Go ahead.
Cool. So back onto Iron. Cool. So yeah, we'll see here then is again, this is just a normal domain. This is just what this domain happens to be, but this could be any website at all.
Yeah.
That just so happens to be compromised. And you'll see here the pop-up. So you're using an older version of Microsoft Edge, update Microsoft Edge. Okay, so the user clicks update Microsoft Edge here, and you'll see then that what happens is they download a file called update.zip.
Mm,
Okay, no worries. So the user then, when they get the downloaded zip file, you'll see they export a zip file. It's an update.javascript file, which by itself will be suspicious, but most users wouldn't probably know that. They double click the file like they would any other file, and then usually what happens is this file script within the file calls out again to some sort of command and control server, and from there downloads secondary payloads and establishes a communication channel then with the attackers and the host to kind of carry
mhm.
out whatever further attacks they want to carry out.
I see. Wow. It seems like a lot of the trends that you're talking about so far is like it's really focused on the identity side, right? Like it's the first one is very like you log in, you use the
Yeah.
identity session token. So you had a third one, sorry. Didn't want
Yeah, I
to.
have a third one as well, and you are right. All three examples actually they basically target the user, right?
Yeah.
Because security tooling is as strong as it's ever been. You've EDRs, NDRs, MXDRs. All these acronyms are designed for security, and they
Yep.
all do such a good job that threat actors have had to pivot to now target what's called kind of the weakest link in the security chain
Yep.
sometimes, which just so happens to be the user. um, so my third example again is actually very similar. So it's called a fake captcha attack,
Hmm.
and it's actually similar to the previous attack I talked about. But again, uh, threat actors, they're always evolving. They're always trying to see what way they can do things better to try evade tools and technology as that gets better as well. So for the fake captcha attack, what happens here is like a captcha. What that just means is, you're browsing the web, you get a pop up, "I'll prove you're human."
Yep. Yeah.
Where's the fire hydrants? What's the crosswalk? We
I'm
all
always
have to
really
deal
bad
with
at
those.
those.
Yeah. Previously, in my last place where I worked, people would joke that I was a robot because I would just fail them all the time. I was really bad at picking out the hydrants. um, but for a fake captcha attack, essentially, same idea happens, right? To get a pop up, you need to prove you're human, except the attackers tell the user to open up PowerShell in their host and then paste in a piece of code that proves they're human, right? But instead, they're essentially doing what the last attack did, except without downloading any file. The user's just typing something into the command line, and they're doing what the script would have done in the last attack, except there's no need to download any malware. They're not going to get caught by any EDR tooling because there was no file downloaded to begin with. Um, so similarly here, I'll just grab control
Yep.
and show you an example I have of that attack as well. And I'll just kind of briefly mention what the differences are here. Yeah, if we go to here, cool. So you'll see you get a pop-up. I'm not a robot. We've all kind of seen this. You tick the
Mhm.
box and you get this. Okay, you need to complete the verification step. So it's asking you to press the Windows and or key. And what that'll do is it will open up the run prompt on Windows. So you'll see here in the bottom left, that's the run prompt.
Mm,
And I'll say in the verification window, press Control V or paste. Basically, what that is. What's happened here is as soon as this web page was opened, the website copied the script to the user's clipboard. So when you copy and paste something, it's already bypassed the copy. It's already there. You don't even have to copy anything. You just need to paste it.
I
So tells the
see.
user,
Okay.
you just need to paste this in. You'll see it's pasted in. They click enter, and it's too late. It's that simple. That attack took, I say, less than 20 seconds, and what's
Yeah.
happening here afterwards. So we can scroll down here and you can see the PowerShell script that's running. you'll see here the PowerShell script is running here, and that's basically what the user was forced to do. The user was tricked essentially into running a PowerShell script that's then going to download again a secondary payload, and the threat actors then have access to the machine and can carry out whatever further attacks they want then. Um, and that's why this attack in particular is very scary, and we're seeing it more commonly because it was so fast. There was nothing downloaded initially. It was
Hmm.
the user executing the command that downloaded secondary files, and those secondary files may then be caught by EDR tooling and other tools. But it's this initial part here, and like you said, the common trend here is the user, right? The
Yeah.
user is being targeted because the tooling nowadays is so strong and so good that the user trackers have to pivot then to try other things there.
Yeah, yeah, and it really sounds like there's attackers are bypassing that, like you mentioned, that initial point. And then once they're in there, you said that sometimes EDR can catch, the suspicious activity, but sometimes they don't. And that's where our NDR product comes into play, like our modern network product, because it we were able to see the suspicious behaviors that go on inside once the attacker is already inside the network, essentially, right?
Yeah, exactly. And in a lot of cases, especially for the AITM and BEC attacks, what we're seeing is our products are catching these, right at the first login stage, right? Because the big part about our product is how it looks for anomalies. It's looking for
Mm,
that difference in what's common for a user or not, and
yep.
being able to determine that something is a bit weird for the user, and that could be a location, it could be something as simple as a user agent or something like that, and it's
Yep.
catching that straight away. Same for faked updates and fake captcha here. It's saying that, connection to a particular domain, or if the user already ran the command line and it's setting up some sort of C2 channel, well then, hey, there's a tunnel being made to this IP or domain, and it's not usually made from this host. So we're
Yep.
catching that as well. And that's what
Yeah.
we're catching a lot of these attacks very early on. Because we're able to find that anomaly super, super quickly.
Absolutely. So my last question for you, in the context of all these common threat trends right now, do you expect similar threat trends to continue in the next 6 months and a year?
Yeah, so for the kind of business email compromise and that sort of attacks, I don't see an end to that anytime soon, unfortunately. Um, it's too successful, and actors are making way too much money from this working. Um,
Mm,
that at the moment this is definitely going to stay. Um, Fake updates and soft ghoulish type malware. We are kind of seeing this less and less. It's
okay.
still quite common, but I imagine over the next 12 to 18 months, to definitely see this kind of get less and less. It's been, I think EDR tooling has gotten very good, and general detection engines and stuff like that are very good. That the the TTP, or the tactic techniques and procedure that they use is quite it's quite simple at the end of the day,
Hmm.
right? It's you get a pop up to the page, the user's downloading a zip file or a JavaScript file, and then they're executing that. And it's quite easy to write detection to catch that and to put policies in place to prevent users from doing that. For example, if a user isn't a software engineer, well, maybe they probably don't need to run JavaScript files. You can just turn off that permission for them in Active Directory
I
via like a
see.
GPO or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, Fake captcha, we are seeing that kind of go the opposite direction at the moment. It's definitely getting more and more popular. I think because it
Oh,
bypasses that initial stage of needing to download a file for something to happen, and unless the domain or website is on sort of threat feed, or it's already been known to be a fake captcha domain, if you're one of the first users to perhaps visit that domain, um, it might not be caught until the file's
I
already downloaded at the
see.
second stage. So I can
Yeah,
imagine that's going to get more popular.
absolutely. Great. Well, thank you so much, Owen, for walking us through the most common threats you've been seeing. It's been really insightful, and I think this is sort of like an educational piece for the audience out there to understand to look out for these types of trends in their own environments as well. So, any last words, Owen, before we close off?
No, I think that's everything from me, Zoe.
Amazing. Okay, thank you so much for watching our Hunt Club podcast. If you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe, and check out all of our other wonderful podcasts from our 4 shows. And thank you so much, Owen, for your time. And hopefully, we can chat more soon about really cool MDR stuff.
Thanks, Zoe.